Silence falls again as the bus rolls forward, entering a tunnel illuminated with overhead lights. Suddenly, the engine sputters and dies. Joe curses as the vehicle coasts to a stop. Pedro jumps up, demanding to know what happened. When Joe can't offer an answer, Pedro jams the gun against his head, shouting at him to fix the bus. Joe tries the ignition repeatedly, but it won't turn over. Growing agitated, Pedro turns his attention to Queenie and grabs her. She pleads not to be harmed, but Pedro threatens her life unless Joe gets the bus running. Joe begs him to calm down, but Pedro drags both him and Queenie off the bus. At gunpoint, he forces Joe to check the engine. The other teens watch anxiously from the windows. Carl begins to panic, convinced that Pedro plans to kill them. Bess insists they need to disarm him, but Carl and Reggie both argue it's too risky. Joe opens a compartment beneath the bus and shines his flashlight inside, trying to assess the issue. He concludes the problem lies with the engine, something beyond his ability to fix. Suddenly, the tunnel goes completely dark. The only remaining light now comes from inside the bus. Pedro holds Joe at gunpoint, visibly unsure about the situation. Everyone else sits frozen in fear. A strange, low growl echoes from the far end of the tunnel. Joe shines his flashlight ahead but sees nothing. Pedro, unsettled, forces Joe to investigate the noise himself while he stays with the teens. Joe hesitantly moves toward the darkness, flashlight in hand. Pedro shoves Queenie back into the bus, and everyone inside watches Joe anxiously. As Joe ventures deeper, a massive hooded figure begins to rise from the shadows. The teens scream, and Joe trembles with fear. The creature lunges at him, grabbing his chest as Joe lets out a blood-curdling scream. Inside the bus, chaos erupts. The teens panic while Pedro tries to regain control. He yells for them to be quiet and forces them to the back of the bus. Desperately trying to think, Pedro realizes the ignition key is missing. Furious, he storms toward Carl and demands he retrieve the key from Joe's body. Carl is too afraid to move, but Nolan volunteers to go instead. Just then, Bess makes a break for the front of the bus. Before anyone can stop her, she leaps out the door. Nolan tries to stop her, but Pedro threatens him with the gun. Bess cautiously walks toward Joe's body, trembling. Reaching his corpse, she kneels and searches his pockets, retrieving the key. Overcome with emotion, she sees his face and begins to cry, but a sudden noise in the distance spooks her. She grabs the flashlight and flees back to the bus. Back inside, she hands Pedro the key. He orders Reggie to start the engine. Nolan asks if Joe is okay, and with a pained look, Bess shakes her head. He's gone. Reggie tries the key, but the engine remains dead. He zeroes in on Queenie first, cruelly calling her Four Eyes. That's when Reggie, pushed past his breaking point, stands up. Pedro's aggressive words toward Queenie spark tension, prompting Reggie to warn him to stop. The brief confrontation gives Nolan an opening. He pushes Pedro, and Reggie seizes the moment to grab the gun. Now the tables have turned. Pedro hesitates as Reggie points the weapon at him, but Pedro isn't done yet. He starts taunting Reggie, accusing him of being too cowardly to pull the trigger. Suddenly, something slams into the bus, shaking it violently. The teens panic and look toward the source of the noise. In the confusion, Pedro reclaims the gun and lifts it skyward. Fear overtakes the group as Pedro jumps out of the bus, screaming into the dark, daring the creature to show itself. His challenge is quickly answered. He freezes when he sees it, and instead of running, he smiles, bewildered and strangely charmed.